Hello everybody, it's great to be back with you. I'm Deborah and you know where you are. So I have been away for quite a while, so I have a few announcements to make for you. Yesterday you saw my announcement about channel memberships. Let's look at the right camera, shall we? I won't be editing this video because it takes too long, so forgive the mistakes. I'm going to be starting a new podcast, a new channel with somebody who's bright and smart and funny, and we will be talking about everything that we know, whether it's mental illness or whether it's something about women or men, marriage, divorce, relationships, crazy stuff that goes on, and so on. But it's all with humor. You see, there's something about this chick that we just gel. So the humor rolls and it's fun. And so I hope you guys are going to enjoy that. I will still bring you videos on various aspects of mental health, but I think you need humor. We need some humor in our lives, right? I sure as heck do. Anyway, back now. Thank you for your lovely messages about my announcement that I'm coming back yesterday. It was really sweet of you guys. Thank you so much. Today I'm going to talk to you about one of the best ways I found to get through trauma. And I'm talking about trauma that you lived as a child, as an adult, maybe as an adolescent, whatever. Trauma can come at any time. Trauma is not just a childhood thing. You could be fine and then you could marry someone who really stuffs you up. Or you could be with someone who does that. So trauma is trauma. And what I found to be the most helpful for me, and in order to tell you this, I'm going to have to give you a little bit of background on me. I've been very sort of quiet about myself, haven't I? Well, I grew up a long time ago. I was born into a family where my father was very famous in the country that I was born into. And we had money and journalists and press and blah, 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 all the time. And I was always looked at, I can only speak for me, nobody else related to me or not is involved in this this talk. So when I was 5 years old, my parents had a very messy divorce. When I was 7 years old. Is that right? I think I was 7 years old. Very messy divorce. And that was splashed all over the papers. So a lot of problems happened thereafter. My father vanished. You can imagine the once loved little girl is now this, I'm not allowed to go to that school anymore, and so on, so on. And you're left reeling with abandonment, with confusion, with just, well, what the hell happened there, And things just got worse and worse. So I basically can say I grew up as a feral child, needing to take care of myself. And there's just two options in life for all of us. When you are under threat, you can decide to shrink or you can decide to fight back. So I decided to fight back, hence my temper. But I kind of try and keep it under control. So if you have suffered with trauma, whether it's in a relationship or whether it's as a child, please know that your responses to people, to events, to certain situations that might not be helpful are not your fault, okay? You've had to learn how to be, how to live in a world that is deeply unforgiving when you are young or whenever it happened to you. And so then you lose yourself. So then you end up with, well, who am I? You know, for me, it was, okay, so there's this wealthy, famous father, so that's what I'm loved for. And then he's gone. Now I'm kind of not that loved for it because lots of reasons, but very, very disturbing for a child. And of course, the result, one never knows the devastating effect that the trauma will have on you when you mature, because it's not what happened to you. It's what happens as a result. Although at the time, when you're suffering the trauma, it's a total bloody nightmare. Let's not pretend it's not. But what happens is that, how do you walk through the fire? Charles Picasso, what matters most is how well you walk through the fire. So I learned how to be stoic. This took me a long, long time. So I thought I'd just share it with you. I realized that if I reacted to things with a feeling of being a victim or a feeling of, yeah, well, I'm just not good enough, even if I felt that, because you're left with feelings of shame, you're left with feelings of guilt, you're left with feelings of you must have done something wrong, because why did this all go so horribly wrong? Meanwhile, none of it could be any of your fault. So what do? To me, for me, one of the ways I thought I'd share with you, and this video will go out to everybody, not just members, because it's important to know that A, your reactions to certain events or people or situations, if they're not helpful, are not necessarily your fault. You are reacting from some memory back there which you haven't worked through. So as I was saying, I learned Stoicism. And when I learned that, I learned to say, well, it either is or it isn't. And if you've watched my videos before, you know that I say there's no such thing as if. It either is or it isn't. That's my view. Okay. With that, helped me to look at the various many traumatic situations I went through right into my adulthood and look at them with an objective. So I step out of myself, looking at it, and without emotion, say, that is it. That's what happened. That is what it is, or what it was. Because remember, the past doesn't exist anymore, but it fucks up our brains because we're trying to survive, not knowing how to, which is horrendous, but it is possible. There are so many various therapists out there, and I have been through God knows how many. I haven't seen one for maybe 15 years, and I don't need to, but the therapy has now evolved to so many different types. You've got somatic healing therapy, you've got trauma-informed therapy, you've got compassionate inquiry counseling, you've got family-based systems therapy. There is so much. So that the traditional therapy is not the only therapy that's available. They all have their role to play. Of course they do. But if you find, where someone asked me this question and said, I'm not finding my therapist that helpful, what should I do? My response, which was just honest, is find another therapist. Because you will find that there are some therapists that you kind of, having grown up, learning how to get food and how to survive and how to freaking cope without shrinking and the floor swallowing you up, that takes courage. So when you see somebody who perhaps has learned it all, but they haven't lived it, it's difficult. It's difficult even for them to understand. I had a therapist once look at me and say, are these people you're talking about still alive? Because they should be in jail about one particular time. And I said, no. And even if they are, they're not in this country. So, and the therapist was deeply distressed by what I told him. And that, I think, was the last time I ever went to a therapist, because I thought, what can they tell me to help me? So I'm not saying don't see a therapist, not at all. I'm saying if you're choosing a therapist and you are full of trauma, if you've got PTSD or just traumatic stress disorder, they're very similar, or if you're living with agoraphobia, or if you're living with constant depression and you can't get up, you don't want to do anything, you should be doing something and your money's running out, but you can't. You're kind of stuck. The freeze response, in the deer in the headlights. It's not your fault. And just know there is someone out there who can help you. Just don't give up. Because if you can't do it on your own, there is someone who can help you, who's maybe also gone through one heck of a bad time or instinctively knows what it's like. So I think we have to just be gentle on ourselves and start reframing the way we say things and think about things. This is something that I learned to do when I was training on my own. I figured this out, because when you are a feral child, you figure things out pretty damn quickly. If you're one of them, you know what I mean, right? How to do it. It's like those little guys in Peaky Little Blinders who pickpocket everyone. They're learning how to survive. That's what they do. Because the love of a parent or parents is so important, but it's not always there. So we have to just live with what is. Not, I wish it was like that. It's pointless, absolutely pointless. And so what you can do is you find a therapist or a counselor. They call them counselors or therapists now. But someone who's trauma informed, that has been trained in understanding trauma and how it presents itself. Because very often the way we present to the therapist overwhelms the therapist, because you're smart and you've come such a long way. But I know from those of you who have been on this channel for so long that you have the resolve, that you have the courage, you're so brave. You've come all this way and you're still standing. You've come through it and you're still here. That means so much, because so many people commit suicide. So many people cannot continue. It's too difficult. I understand that. And I'm sure you do too. But that isn't always the answer, because it always passes. I have bipolar, I have ADHD, which you guys all know, and I used to have borderline, which I am now cured of. Thank God. Borderline is one of the worst illnesses, but I know that baby backwards. So gone. And that's from being neglected and being abandoned and so on. But we won't go into that. So what you can do is you can really start looking at your life with a sense of fact. Try and be more stoic. So when things are not working, rather say to yourself, okay, that's what it is. It is what it is. What can I do it? And then reframe your thoughts. So when you think, oh my God, I was left when I was young and now I've got no chance, and etc., just reframe that and say, I was abandoned and neglected, but I made it. So you've got to keep looking for, and it sounds so cliche to say, the positive in the negative. That's annoying, isn't it? I mean, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying for your own mind, every time a thought comes into your mind of how crap it all is, you're depressed, or you just not coping, or you're just crying. Because often with depression, it's sadness. We're not crying. We are not depressed. We're sad, and that's when we're crying. And we get frozen. We can split. We can dissociate if the trauma is too much. So I would say there's two things that I'd leave you with. Number one is, if you have come from a place of trauma and you're still trying to get through it, be very aware of narcissistic or toxic people, because they feed off of your pain and your energy. And what you'll do is you'll do anything for them just to make them validate and like you. So that's a problem. When you see yourself doing that, pull back immediately for your own sake. And the second thing you can do, of course, is start exercising a modicum of stoicism. So you can look at your life or pieces. You don't have to go through the whole thing again and go back over the vomit. No, but if something flashes into your head, first know it's not happening now, it happened then. And secondly, that's what happened. How did I get out of it? Somehow I got out of it, and I'm here. And be proud of yourself. Be proud of yourself. If no one's ever been proud of you, and you've been told that you're useless, or you can't do this, and you didn't do that, and you're such a nasty such and such, and none of that has to be true. Everyone has their own agenda. Everyone believes what they believe for whatever reason they do, but you know in your heart who you are. So you don't have to take on board every criticism that comes your way. But at the same time, if someone says, listen, you're being an asshole because this and this and this, you can accept that and say, yeah, well, actually, maybe I was, and don't be afraid to apologize. But don't spend your life as the victim saying, I'm sorry, because we can fall into that trap if we are trauma survivors. And on this channel, you're all trauma survivors and thrivers, actually. So you're not alone. You're with a whole tribe of people who have all suffered various types of trauma. And some are still suffering various types of trauma. But I can promise you, there is a way out. There is light on the other side. And I wouldn't say that if I hadn't come through my hell. I've been to hell. So when people say there's heaven and hell, I'm like, yeah, I've been to hell. Thank you very much. Yeah, don't talk to me about it. So when I talk to you, I'm talking from experience. Never mind book knowledge. And so that you can feel safe. You can feel safe with what I say. You can feel safe with what I tell you. Because if I told you my whole story, you'd be gobsmacked. But I'm not doing that. That's coming out in a book later in the year. So I wanted you guys to just be gentle on yourselves, love yourselves. If you've been stuck in bed for 5 days, you haven't showered, you're too depressed to do a thing, and your house looks like a rubbish tip. And so, who's going to judge you but you yourself? If you forgive yourself, as in, I'm not a bad person, I'm not lazy, I'm not dirty, I have depression. For an example, there's a reason I've been in bed for all this time, because I'm the deer that's now frozen in the headlights and I can't cope. But it will pass. And always remind yourself, it will pass. It will pass. Even if you have to put that on repeat in your head, it will pass, it will pass. The most important thing is to be gentle on yourselves. And don't let others be cruel to you. And the way to do that is just walk away. You don't have to fight unless you like to, in which case always say a healthy fuck you, which I enjoy. I really like that word. I think it says a lot of things. But I try not to say it too often on camera. That doesn't say I don't say it off camera. So that's really what I wanted to talk to you today about. The Fat Friday is coming up. And I've had a week of Fact This at this stage, which I'll share with you. And the new podcast will be starting the week after next. Next week I'll be away. And then we will bring you the all new and improved, fabulous bunch of crazy stuff. And I'm sure you'll love it. But in the meantime, be gentle on you. Love yourself because you deserve to be loved. You are lovable. No one deserves to not love you or to take that away from you. And loving yourself is not a vain, narcissistic thing to do. Loving yourself in a healthy way is so important to your very survival. So remember that. Don't let others bring you down because you have the power to ignore them. You have the power to take what they say seriously or let it float over your head. Or fuck you, whatever makes you feel better. Or bless you, whatever rocks your boat. But you're a thriver, you're a survivor. You didn't get here because you're some victimless wimp. No, don't ever forget that. So we're going to be stoic. When the past comes haunting you, by like a cloud overhead, think of something happy quickly. And if you have to think of something in your past, try and think of it objectively. Don't be the subject, be objective, so that you can lessen the emotional impact. Thanks for staying with me. Long video, but I wanted to just put this out to you today. I thought it's necessary because so many of us, and especially today in the world, there is so much trauma. There's so much overload of information. I mean, AI is great and all that, but oh my God, it's just, you've got to try now keep up with that. And sometimes there's things you don't understand, and it's not because you're stupid, it's because you have to learn this stuff. And it's the same as when you started school. I said I was going to go. Now I'm saying this. When you started school, how did you learn? You learned through repetition, right? So you wrote A, and that's how you learned. Well, it's the same now with computers. If you've got to do something and you don't know how on earth to make it work, look it up and take notes. Or print it out and copy it verbatim. Because that's the one thing AI gives us. That's instructions on how to do this stuff. I've had to do it all the time, trust me. No more slamming the computer down. Just, okay, what do you say? AI, and they listen to me. It's almost like the human. The machine gives me what I need to know. And so there we go. Gentle, loving, you're precious, and you're meant to be here. And you're a gift, okay? You're meant to be here. No matter what shit the universe has thrown at you, you're meant to be here. I'll see you soon. Please subscribe if you feel to, and I'll be doing the Fat Friday, and then of course a video for members of the channel. You can join the channel just by clicking the join button below your screen. That's simple. Okay then, have yourselves a great day. I'll be with you soon. Ciao.